I realized that I needed to look after myself because
Mhm.
I did have burnout. Every day we would say, we have to remember where we are right now. This is just incredible. And he really struggled to say, I will come with you
Mm.
because he said, I've never had anyone offer to help me before.
In this episode, we explore the quiet courage it takes to choose a different kind of life in midlife. From burnout and identity loss to taking 50 weeks off to travel through Europe, this conversation touches on intuition, ancestry, nature, ageing, and the unexpected people who seem to cross our path at exactly the right time. If you've been craving more freedom, more meaning, or simply permission to want something more, this episode might stay with you. Enjoy.
You don't need permission to want more from your life.
Welcome back to another episode of Midlife Unfiltered. My guest today is Trish Mallabar, someone I first met when she was a teacher at my children's high school, before later becoming colleagues when I ended up working there myself for 6 years. Over that time, I've come to know Trish as someone who's loving and kind with a deep sense of curiosity, warmth, and a quiet courage. Originally from Melbourne, Trish began her teaching career in Darwin before meeting her husband Dave and travelling around Australia in a combi for a year. Later, life would take them to Wollongong, Tannum Sands, and eventually Noosa, where Trish spent more than a decade teaching before deciding it was time for a different kind of life. And we'll hear more about that. In recent years, she and Dave travelled through North America and Europe for extended periods, reconnecting with adventure, ancestry, and a slower way of living along the way. Today, Trish works in aged care, something she speaks about with genuine love, and continues to embrace life with openness, intuition, and a willingness to follow wherever the next chapter leads. So welcome, Trish.
Thank you so much. What a beautiful introduction.
Oh, well, it's funny how many people actually say that. And as I say to everyone, that's how I see you. And
That's
I'm
lovely.
excited for our conversation today. And I think our listeners will be too. So, where I would like to start is actually with your teaching career, because I guess that's where I met you. And I know it was something that was so important to you for such a long time. Tell me a little bit about your teaching career and when you started to notice that teaching was feeling a bit different to how it used to.
Okay, so when I first got into teaching, it took me a little while to work out what I really wanted to do. It's funny, teaching where I ended up wasn't where I thought I would be. So my whole intention of getting into education was actually to work with Aboriginal children,
Okay.
because I really felt that there was a strong need in Aboriginal communities
Mm-hmm.
for education at that time, and
Yep.
they needed a lot of support. They still do. And so my heart took me to the northern parts of Australia. So that's where I first was introduced to Aboriginal culture, just typical everyday life for
Yeah.
Aboriginal people,
Yep.
which was absolutely amazing for me. It was a whole learning process. So I worked up in a boarding school in Darwin, and I soon found out that I don't really know if it was my place to make a difference to these Aboriginal
Mm.
beautiful children. They came from a completely different culture. At that time, I was actually thinking, I don't know if I actually belong in this school here, and that's when I started thinking, I don't think I've got the resources needed
Mm.
to give them what I thought I would be able to give them. So, they are beautiful children. I took on voluntary roles of mentoring them after school, a
Yep.
particular girl after school, and which was very valuable. But I'm
Mm.
not sure how valuable it was for her. It was all me, me, me. And then I did find that once I was up there, that a lot of the Aboriginal kids, they were homesick. They were
Yeah, of
outside their
course.
comfort zone, and they were in a place that they did not really choose to be.
Mm.
So that's when I started questioning, is this really where I should be? But I didn't make a conscious decision to stop teaching up in the Northern Territory. I met Dave, and we were both ready for a bit of an adventure. So we just happened to walk along one of the main streets of Darwin, and we saw a backpacker out front selling a combi. And we both looked at each other and we said, what do you think? Do you think we could, let's go for a little adventure? So we went off, and our tradition was to, have a drink of Diet Coke and sit down and talk about what we were going to do next. And so within a week, we bought that combi and started making plans for the following year. And we just travelled. My experience in Darwin was absolutely magical. I wouldn't change it for the world. I absolutely loved it. I loved every person I met. I still, I have dreams of Darwin and the life up there. And I was just ready to move on to something else where so after traveling for a year, we then settled in Wollongong unexpectedly. It wasn't a conscious decision to settle in Wollongong after a year. It just happened,
you just followed life, and when it
exactly.
felt right, then that's where we
Yes.
landed.
Yeah. I mean, Dave's family did live in Wollongong at that time, but we picked up a couple of jobs. One was, I was already a teacher, obviously, but I picked up a job as a dish pig in a restaurant and petrol attendant at a Caltex petrol station. So I didn't want to do teaching at that point because I was still in my holiday mode.
Yeah. Yeah. And we will take any job we can when we're on holidays, right?
Exactly. So I did that, and we had a wedding that we were about to be involved in, which was our own. So we did get engaged on that trip. So after I got back from my wedding, we moved back up to Wollongong. Yeah.
And there you started teaching again in the
And
end.
there I started teaching in an all-girls school, which was just completely different to what I'd ever expected.
I imagine it was, and
It
different
really
to what you'd
was.
experienced.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I had to take a bit of a shift because I thought, is this what I wanted to do, to be in teaching for? But I could see the value. Like, I just loved the girls. They did what what they asked them to do.
Well,
Like
they were well behaved.
they were keen. They were keen learners. It wasn't. It really was no effort there. And no, it was lovely. So while I was having children, it was very much a stress-free experience of teaching these girls and, learning all about gifted education and all that sort of stuff. It was, yeah.
And because it's interesting that you say that around it was very much stress-free, because my perception now is that teaching is a lot more stressful than it used to be. And
Yes,
we're seeing higher numbers than ever of teachers sort of walking away from a career of teaching.
absolutely. Yes. It's just not sustainable,
Yeah.
Margaret. The expectations that are placed on teachers today are just ridiculous.
When did you start, first notice that teaching was starting to feel different for you?
Probably in the last 10 years, actually. The behaviours were changing. The culture of school really shifted to having to justify everything you do in the classroom. Like the power of the teacher was being taken away from them. Being able to individually to teach using your own personality, using your own experiences, using your own knowledge.
Yeah.
You just felt like you were being watched all the time. You're constantly having to complete paperwork. So why did you teach this student this way? The number of students with special needs was increasing.
And less support. Like, even though they were increasing, there was no support for that either.
Correct. There was a certain amount of support, and I'm not blaming any school for not giving that support. It's just the system. If those people that were in the support services had to, justify why they were giving special benefits or compensation to these students, and they had to show where that was being used, which sounds wonderful in theory, but to have to deal with that.
Yeah.
We were getting up to 10, even more than 10 special needs students in a classroom.
In a class, yeah. And that's a lot. That's a very high percentage, and that's a lot of behaviours to manage.
It is. And then you also have the fear of neglecting those students that also need your attention, but they're not getting it because your whole focus is trying to fulfill the needs of these students that are really struggling.
So if we bring that back then to you, if we think about, you've been a teacher for many, many years, albeit in different scenarios, and you've learned a lot from that. How much of your identity was tied to being a teacher?
Oh, I would have to say 95%.
Yeah. Okay.
Absolutely. It is a vocation. Teaching
Yes.
is a vocation. It's something that you give to be a good teacher, you have to give it all.
Yeah.
It's not just the 8 to 3:30 that you are a teacher. You are a teacher. I mean, it was taking over more and more of my life.
Yeah.
To be a good teacher, you feel like you need to be there all the time. Otherwise, you feel like you're failing. Even because of technology now, you get emails. Getting an email from a parent at 10 o'clock at night if I'm planning and I'm just opening up my email. Of course, I'm going to read it. And then, that could be a negative or a positive
Yeah.
email. And then I'd be not sleeping all night because I'd be worried about what I had done or what I hadn't done. Or I'd be frustrated because that parent had no idea what I had done and was ready
Yeah.
to say that I hadn't done that. So there's that aspect of it. And then there's the aspect of the way the school year is organized.
Mm.
We have 2 weeks holidays, every set of holidays. And when I first started teaching, those were holidays.
Yeah.
But the way the school is structured now is that you teach right up to the end. You then have to do your reports, your marking, your
You're planning.
your planning, everything in the
Mm.
holidays.
Yeah.
So it's really tricky. And if you are planning to go on a holiday, trying to get all of that done just
Yeah.
burns you out. So by the time you do go on your holiday, you are burnt out and you can't
Yes.
enjoy it.
So you mentioned in your pre-chat that you noticed a change when you were going through perimenopause and menopause,
Absolutely.
in your relationship to teaching. So can you talk a little bit about that?
Okay, so for anyone who's been through menopause, I know each of us deal with it in different ways and have different sorts of symptoms. But to me, I basically my head was just goes all fuzzy over a period of
Mm.
time. My tolerance levels reduce. I get depressed. I get anxious. It's like there still is a cycle there, but
Mhm.
it's a cycle of high anxiety and depression,
Mm.
which doesn't fit well with teaching. So there were stages where, I would eventually have to admit that I would have to take mental health days. And I did take more and more mental health days, and I encouraged other people, especially younger teachers who were really, really struggling, who weren't going through menopause, but just to say that, yes, we all need to have some time to actually reboot ourselves,
Yeah.
to continue to be a good teacher. I was not able to be a good teacher anymore. I was not confident that I
Yeah.
was giving the students everything that I needed to. I was, losing my patience. And it wasn't so much just with the students, it was just with the whole system. I had to
Yeah.
get this done and this done and this done by tomorrow. It wasn't to do with teaching. And then COVID hit, and then we even more expectations of learning new technology. And, us older minds don't deal with technology as quickly as the
Yeah.
younger teachers, and also our relationships with students. It has
Yeah.
changed over time. So the younger teachers have got a different type of relationship, and the older teachers who are maybe a little bit more traditional, like I was, struggled in some cases to do the
Mm.
right thing by the school, to do the right thing by, what the leadership were telling us to do, and
Mm.
also to try to have that, relationship with students. It was really tricky.
Yeah, look, it
Um,
was a really tricky time. I know I was working in the school at that point, and I mean, it was nearly impossible when you think about the expectations that were upon you from leadership, but also from parents to continue to deliver that same sort of level of education. But albeit now you've got to do it in a completely different way where you can't, it's much harder to connect with people at that point. I think it's changed a little bit now as we've all gotten a bit more used to it. But if we look at, I don't want to get too bogged down in there though. You then at one point said yes to a 6-month trip around America.
Correct.
And yeah, so what made you say yes to that?
Well, I think COVID did a lot, because we had actually planned to travel pre-COVID, as many other people had. And I think it made us really step back and think, wow, things can change really quickly.
Mhm. Yeah.
Am I ever going to have the opportunity to travel again? We didn't know what was going on during COVID, did we? We didn't
No,
know how long it was going to last,
no, that's
what
right.
impact it was going to have on our future. Dave and I had planned a holiday probably for 2021. And then as soon as we were able, we just said, let's just book it. So don't even think about how it's going to impact us here.
Mm.
Let's just book it. So we booked it. As soon as that, 1 year ahead came, I booked on that day and I said, can I please have leave at this time? And we got it. It was just what we needed. So we just went off. We decided that we'd done a little bit of research beforehand. We bought ourselves a car and we just traveled through all of those, bucket list items.
Yeah.
We love hiking. We love being out in nature, national parks. So we focused on the national
Mm.
parks. We went from one national park to another, to another, to another, and it was magical. It
That's
really
the
was.
way I want to tour the US, actually. It's just the national parks. I'm
Yeah.
so drawn to just the energy of them and that nature, the difference in nature than what we have in Australia.
Oh, it's such a beautiful country.
Yeah.
It really is. You talk about North America and Canada.
Mm. So what changed within you in that 6 months and, when you came back?
I realized that I needed to look after myself because
Mhm.
I did have burnout before I left. There was no doubt about that. And when I returned to teaching, I probably shouldn't have returned to teaching at that point because I was going back to the same habits of
Mhm.
working, going in early, preparing, going in, teaching, and then having to stay for hours afterwards
And
because
you were
I
you
like
were
to make
working
sure I'm really
part-time at
present.
that time?
I was part-time, which I was coping with quite easily. But then the interview came and I was told that my plan was to continue part-time.
Mhm.
But then I was told by the principal that that may not be available and that I was not promised a job if I, wanted to just work part-time.
Mhm.
And it's funny, I didn't really feel bad about that. I sort of sat there and I thought, maybe this is happening for a reason here. So I said to him straight away, like, I'll talk to my husband about it, but I won't be coming back unless it's part-time. And if you can't guarantee that, I won't come back. That's what happened. I decided, well, I've been doing this for 32 years now. I didn't necessarily think I would be teaching for 32 years, but this was time for me.
Yeah.
So I just decided that let's try something new. I was a little bit, I was very nervous. I didn't know what I was going to do.
Mhm.
I had to really rethink what am I going to do with my time? What do I love doing? What can
Mhm.
I do that possibly that, brings out that joy in life? And eventually I thought about I love meeting people. I love anything to do with photos, anything to do with ancestry, anything to do with, looking back on life. Let's see what I can do about maybe organising some photos for people. Because
Lord, that's a big job.
yeah, I knew personally of a lot of people who had loads of photos, particularly, my generation and older, who still had the hard copies of photos and, they
Yes.
were in boxes and they were given boxes of photos by their parents and they hadn't really done anything with them. Whereas I have a completely organized set of files with all of my photos and I know exactly where they all are and I just love doing it. So I started doing that for my sister-in-law. I sorted out hers for her and a good friend of mine. And then I thought, maybe I could do something like this as a business. So
Wow.
yeah, I thought I'd give it a go
Very
and
time consuming, isn't it?
very, very time consuming. The issue with it being a business is that I'm not a business person. I'm more of a a person that enjoys being with people, but
Mm.
I'm not into marketing or anything like that. And I thought I could teach myself to do those sorts of things.
Mhm.
So I spent hundreds of hours doing online courses and making
Mm.
myself familiar with the technology, and which I did do. I bought the equipment. So I did a lot of work for people I knew. I put in some social media ads, but I couldn't continue to back it up. So my passion was not in the advertising and the marketing of my business. The passion was actually doing what I was doing.
I hear you loud and clear on that one.
Yeah. So I knew that wasn't going to work. I was more than happy to continue doing that with friends, for friends, because I
Yeah.
just love it. But as a business, I thought, no, this is not me.
Yeah, I can understand that. So then I know, and one of the things that I've been following you in the last year in
Hmm.
particular, that you went on this amazing 50-week trip. And trying to get my head around 50 weeks, imagining what does that feel like to just purely travel? So
Yeah.
I'm curious just to talk a little bit about that. Like, was there a moment when you just went, "Are we really doing this?"
Every day. Every day, honestly. Every day we would say, we have to remember where we are right now. This is just incredible. Like, look what we've done. We're so proud of ourselves because we had thought about it for a while. We love watching Escape to the Country.
Mhm.
And we would quite often when we're watching, oh, wouldn't it be lovely to live there for a year and enjoy, life over there in England and just be able to cross the water and visit all those different countries in
Yes.
Europe. And then we thought, well, why can't we? Let's do it. So we don't have grandchildren at the moment, so we didn't feel like we needed to be here. Both our kids are very independent. We thought, yeah, they can manage without us for a year. We both did not have, well, Dave was working full time, but he was more than happy to sacrifice his working life for travel life.
What a sacrifice.
And we thought, how are we going to be able to do this? What steps do we need to do to make this real? Luckily for us, things just worked out um, that we were able to rent our house out for a decent amount of money. We saved. We're not big spenders. We only have one old car that sort of just gets us from A to B at the moment. And we just sacrificed a lot of material things because they just did not take priority to us.
Well, you get
So
to
once,
travel for 50 weeks or,
oh
have a new
man,
car. Well, it's yeah.
exactly. The other backup plans we had were to do some pet sitting.
Mhm.
Um, You get to stay in a home for however long. So you just choose if you want it to be a few days, a few weeks, even a couple of months if you want to. So there is a special pet sitting site that we used. And we did a bit of planning around that. So we just said this put up a profile together and said, we'd love to come and, spend some time in your little village. And we chose places that were outside of cities and where we could actually maybe even become a little bit part of that community. So we did that, which was absolutely wonderful because as anybody knows who has travelled, even though it is absolutely amazing, it's exhausting.
Yes, it is. Yeah.
Making decisions every day, where are we going to go, how are we going to get there? And when you don't have a car, it's just full on.
Yeah, and
So,
translating everything, I find, you're in the supermarket, you're
translating.
trying to translate everything so you can get
Exactly.
the right bit of food or the,
Yes. So what is that food? Yes.
yeah.
So we did that and just relaxed and took dogs out for a walk. Met so many people along the way. If you've got a dog, you've got lots of people who are going to come up and talk to you. And we did feel like we were part of a community. You get to know the same people with their dogs. You
Yeah.
go to pubs. We did this in England mainly. And, there are other dog owners sitting there with their dogs and
Mm.
they come
So
over and have a chat.
so you've had this identity of being a teacher for so many
Hmm.
years, and now you've gone out and you're exploring the world, and I can see it even as we're talking, like you're coming alive as you're talking about this. So what did travel teach you about yourself now in midlife?
Just that you don't have to feel trapped. There is a world out there outside of work. And it doesn't mean you stop working because I certainly wouldn't want to stop working. But it doesn't matter if you make mistakes. Just be
Mm,
prepared to make mistakes because that's how we learn. It's the same lesson I would always give my students, which is not so easy to grasp onto because that's what we're always worried about, failing.
yes. Yeah,
It
yeah,
doesn't, you
totally.
know, it doesn't matter if you fail. Where
And
would we be without?
yeah, exactly. And it's interesting because the school system is one of those systems that really sets you up to not want to fail and to try and protect yourself from failing.
Mhm.
Whereas when you go out and you explore life, like it's just another part of it.
Exactly.
It's actually not that big a deal. There's not many consequences that we face that I guess life threatening or that completely change your life from making a mistake.
Yeah, that's right.
Mm,
And it builds our character, doesn't it? It
doesn't
really
it
does.
just? Yeah,
Yeah.
doesn't it? So what happened to what did you notice about your nervous system then when you stopped rushing and you started being present and being where you were?
Oh, look, fresh air, the outdoors, the freedom, of course, it's going to be good for you, isn't it?
Mm,
It doesn't mean that I was always upbeat and bubbly and
mm,
enjoying everything. I
sure.
also had to accept that there's always going to be a stage when I'm sad. That's just my condition. I will always
Mm,
have down days. That's just my life. And luckily, my husband is an amazing support, and he knows when I'm not doing so well, and he's there for me, or he just leaves me to it, and I just have my own time. I mean, everybody needs their downtime. Everybody needs their me time.
mm.
And that was so easy to do while we were traveling as well. I just like to hibernate and, then it might be absolutely beautiful outside, but there are times when I don't want to see that beauty. I just want to be inside and
Yeah.
just, you know, deal with what I'm dealing with.
Yeah, listen to your
So
own system and what you're needing in that moment.
exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you can't be happy all the time. It
Mm.
doesn't matter if you're not happy all the time.
Yeah.
It's
Doesn't
it's
mean
exhausting.
you can still live a really full life knowing that, yeah, there are times when you don't feel happy.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And there's nothing wrong.
So I know you shared a couple of stories with me when we caught up, and
Yeah.
one of them that really touched me was this boy in Sarajevo,
Mm.
and I'd love you to tell me about that story because I think it's such an interesting moment of for me, I look at it go the universe intervening.
So, uh, Dave and I were traveling through Bosnia and Herzegovina, and we were in the main city of Sarajevo. And wherever we went, we would like to explore
Mm,
the place. And we decided to go for a walk to see the chairlift, to see if it was worth going up to the chairlift. And when we went up there, we realised that it was probably a bit too expensive for us. So we thought, oh, there's a board here that's got a bit of a walking track. Why don't we try to walk up there? We couldn't really work the board out. And as I was saying to you, Margaret, Dave does not like it when I get my Google Maps out. And I really do get a little bit anxious when he says, oh, we'll find the place. But this particular day, I thought, no, I'm just going to go with the flow. Let's
mhm.
see if we can find the top of this mountain. I was a little bit nervous, but let's see if we can do it. So we walked through suburbia. There was some houses. It was getting higher and higher and higher. We had to stop. It was so steep. And eventually we did work our way up to almost the end of suburbia. So there were a few houses that was sort of bordering the bush. And before we decided to go any further, a young boy approached us and said, oh, do you want to see my cubby house? Like he was just adorable. He would have been about 12 years old, and his house was, we were pretty much standing at where his house was. And behind, he was sort of bordering the bush and his house. And he'd put together all of these different types of structures that he'd found from just, bits of rubbish. And
Mm.
it built this beautiful little house. And I thought, how wonderful. I mean, there were so many lessons to be learnt just in that moment there, that he was outside living a very simple life. He was so happy, like you could see he was
Mm.
beaming and so excited to share that with us. And I thought, oh, wow, you really don't get that much of that in Australia. There's no screens. There's just him outside on his own and just designing little parts of this cubby house.
And willing to show a complete stranger who's just walking along the street, "Hey, come
Yes.
and have a look at what
Yeah,
I've
yeah,
built."
yeah. And funnily enough, he knew we weren't Bosnian. He just automatically spoke English. So yeah, he had a long chat with us, and I thought, oh, this is a good opportunity to ask him, how do we continue from here, because we don't seem to find a park. As soon as we mentioned that we wanted to go up a bit further up to the top of the mountain, his eyes popped out of his head and he said, no, 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 we don't go out there. You don't go out there. There are bears. He said there was a bear walking, into our garage last year. And I stopped and I thought, this is one of my huge fears, and it has been. And Dave just goes, oh no, it'll be all right. It'll be all right. And then he started talking about wolves. And what was the other animal? Oh, wild boars. And oh my goodness. He said, no, we don't go out there. He said, I look through there with my friends, and sometimes we get confronted with these animals, but we have to keep a distance. So that's when I realized that I think I was going to stop there and walk back.
Because Dave's sort of got that adventurous nature
He
to
does.
him. Let's
He
just
does.
roll with it. And you're a bit more,
Yeah, a
centered
little bit
around it.
more
Let's just
cautious.
check it out. Yeah.
A little bit more cautious. I do like to take a few risks, but certainly not when it comes to bears.
And was he happy to turn around when he heard
No,
that?
he wasn't. He was still pretty proud, and he continued to walk a few steps. And I sort of stood back and I said, well, I'm heading back now. I'll see you later. And so we just took a couple of photos and he followed me down. Yes, which was a common trait in our holidays. He would be gung ho. Let's take the path less trodden, which sounds amazing. I love that idea. But
Yeah.
when danger is involved,
Yeah.
I probably won't push those limits.
No. And it's interesting that, this young 12-year-old boy, like little angel in disguise, sort of stopped, because otherwise you would have just kept walking and entered into
Absolutely.
that territory.
Yeah.
Yeah, and this happened more
Totally.
than once, right? Like when we were talking, I was like, "Oh, this is interesting." The universe sort of intervened a couple of times when you needed it, and probably when in a way that Dave needed it as well.
Mm-hmm.
So there was the waiter in Amsterdam, which
Yes.
I was just like, "Wow, look at that, stepping in again."
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Whenever we go anywhere, we take the opportunity to talk to the locals as much as possible, and even practice our language skills, or like ours. And we were sitting in this little cafe in Amsterdam, and we were practicing what we were going to say. So we asked for whatever we wanted, and then he said to us, "Oh, where are you from?" And we told him we were from Australia. Said we're traveling around, and then we found out that he was Albanian, and this was a country that we hadn't been to yet, and we were really planning to explore because we'd seen that it had so many beautiful mountains and walking tracks to go through. And he said, if I'll give you my bit of advice, that it's not a good idea to go out there on your own. If you want to go walking through the Albanian landscapes, there is a heavy threat of bears. Yeah, there's a high rate of bears. There's an increasing rate of bear attacks in Albania, and we had absolutely no idea of that. We hadn't really looked into the dangers of that place. We never really thought that there would be.
Yeah,
I
it's
don't
just
know. We just
beautiful
didn't know that there'd
mountains,
be bears.
right?
Yeah. So that's when I took a step back and thought, okay, might make a few changes there. And Dave said, no, it'll be all right. It'll be all right. So I just went off and did some research, and I came back and I showed Dave that actually there had been quite a few attacks just in the last year. And that if we do it, we would have to make sure that we were with somebody who knew the area. So yeah, we ended up not going to those parts of Albania. We stuck to the south instead. Yeah.
Yeah, it's really fascinating to me how these people were placed in your path at the right times and gave you a piece of information. Now, whether or not you would have been attacked by a bear, you can never know, but there's something bigger in all of that to me when I sort of look at that experience as a whole. So were there moments for you where it felt like, yeah, that was bigger than just a coincidence?
Probably so many. really. I mean, even just meeting people, and I think we meet people for a reason, no matter what.
Yeah.
So you start chatting to them. Like there was one time where, and I believe in karma. I definitely believe in karma,
Mm.
where we were in Slovenia and we had just come back from another walk and we're walking to our car. It was near Lake Lead. And there was a public bus that had sort of pulled up, and I can see an elderly gentleman walking towards that bus, actually almost jogging towards that bus.
Mm-hmm.
And he had his walking stick, and the bus mustn't have seen him and just kept driving. And I just thought, oh, that is awful. I just felt so
Mm.
sad out for him. So then I just said, look, where are you going? He said, I'm just going into town. I said, well, come in. He said, no, 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 no. I said, no, no, come on, honestly, we're going down that way anyway. And he really struggled to say, I will come with you,
Mm.
because he said, I've never had anyone ask me to, anyone offer to help me before at his
Wow.
age. People who did not know, had ever offered to help him. So he came in the car and said, I want you to try the traditional cake of Slovenia. He said, we'll just stop somewhere. Have you got time? I said, yeah, of course we've got time. So we stopped at an amazing bakery, and he basically ordered us one of each of the traditional. There wasn't just one, Margaret. There was like 4 or 5 different cake and one slice each. And these slices were massive. And I kept saying to him, you don't need to do this. He said, no, no, I want to. It ended up that his family actually owned a lot of the historical buildings on the top of the mountain there.
Mm.
So you wouldn't have thought that he was well off, but he was well off. But he said, no, I want to do this for you because, you
You,
make me
sh-
feel, yeah,
you showed kindness.
you've
Yeah.
really made my day.
And
And I felt awful.
I find it really interesting, because I agree with you 100% that when we meet people, it's not by accident. And
Mm,
when we think about statistically what had to happen in order for him to end up in your car, that you had to be there at that moment, that he had to be walking, that he was running a bit late, that he missed the bus, that you thought, let's stop. Like
mm,
statistically, you go, you can't force those things. So you really have to sort
that's
of
right.
flow with them and enjoy life. So, and when you're traveling, of course, you slow down. Like you said, yeah, of course we've got time. And many times in our normal life, we'll just go, well, no, I've got to get here, or I've got to get there.
Exactly.
So do you think that we become a bit more open to those sorts of signs when we slow down?
I think so.
Mm.
Yeah, I think so. One of our favourites, this sounds ridiculous, but one of our favourite little activities was going to the laundromat. You meet people in a laundromat, and you just get to sit, or even just watch people.
Yes.
And we'd always take a pack of cards. Like everywhere we went, we play cards, sitting on trains or whatever. And it's a good opportunity for other people to join in as well. But there were many people that we met in laundromats that were from actually not far from where we live. So we met a few people from the Sunshine Coast, a few people from Brisbane, just in random places all over
Mm.
the world.
Yeah.
Yeah, we really did enjoy laundromats
No,
for
I
that reason.
understand that. I understand that you get to sort of watch people. It's a good reason to take some downtime, but equally walking out with freshly laundered clothes when you're traveling is it's
Exactly.
just so nice.
Yes, it is. Yeah.
So part of where you travelled was Denmark. And
Yes.
you and I both share the Danish ancestry. And you mentioned earlier that you love going, you love researching ancestry. And so what did it feel like for you when you went to Denmark and you were standing in a place where your ancestors come from?
Yeah. It's pretty incredible. There is definitely a connection.
Mm.
I've still got about 10 cousins over in Denmark, one of which can speak English. And, when I met up with them, I had met them before, probably about 30 years ago.
Hmm.
But when I met up with them, it was just instant tears and hugs, even though we haven't really had anything to do with each other because of the
Mm.
language barrier. It was just that real connection of family, of place, and we were able to communicate without speaking the same language. Um,
It's quite unusual, actually. Most Danish people I know speak English really well.
yes, I know, but I think because of it's the older generation, their children. So my generation, my one of my cousins can speak English. None of the others can speak English, which
Yeah.
was incredible. But
Whereas
their
all of
children
my
can speak
cousins
English.
can speak English.
Yeah,
Yeah.
wow. Yeah.
I know when I go there, I feel this sense of familiarity that
Mm,
I can't explain. Like I know that there's some connection here, but I can't explain. Almost like my soul knows this place.
yes. It's crazy, isn't it?
Mm. So you've been researching your ancestry and family
Ancestry.
history,
Yes,
and you went over and met your uncle and did one of your favorite things to do.
I did. Yes, so my uncle takes people around to see different parts of Vela, and he has a passion about where he's lived there all his life. He's 85
Wow.
years old and hasn't moved.
Oh, wow.
It's so incredible. The
It
whole
is, isn't it?
family, everyone, every part of my family still live in that same village where my dad was born, which is
Goodness.
incredible.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I asked if he could give me a little tour, family tour. And of course I had my cousin who could interpret for me. And I really wanted to take that home to dad.
Mm,
Um,
mm.
because I knew how important it was for him because he did visit his brothers quite regularly up until about maybe 6 years ago, and then he made the decision that he couldn't go anymore, which was really sad. He started the tour by walking out of his home. The whole thing was walking.
Mhm.
We walked probably 500 meters to where Dad was born, where he was born,
Wow.
where his brothers were born in this little house. So they shared this house with their grandparents and their auntie and uncle. That was during the war. They lived in the basement. Grandma and granddad lived on the first floor, and uncle and auntie lived in the first floor. Yeah, so he was sharing stories about how, there were four boys. Two of them, when they were babies, actually had their beds in these set of drawers.
Wow.
Um,
Yeah, well, yeah, I've
yeah,
heard of that actually.
which is just what it was like. We then, from there, walked to where Dad went to school. Actually, all the boys went to school there. All my nieces and nephews went to school there as well, and their kids also are going to school there, which is incredible. Apparently, this building, we were talking a little bit about the war, how when the Germans occupied Denmark, they used the school. So school just stopped for 5 years. That's just what happens.
Yeah.
And the Germans occupied it as one of their main administration offices while they were over there.
Mm.
And then we walked past where my grandfather and my great grandfather worked in a mill.
Goodness. Do you feel like as we're sort of walking through midlife that it makes you can speak for yourself, makes you long for that sense of deeper roots than what we currently sort of experience?
Absolutely. Yeah.
Mm.
Particularly because our parents are getting
Yeah.
old towards the end of their lives. They really value the importance of their story. I think it's something that needs to be carried down, and it's not something that we consciously do while while we're in our peak of our lives. Those little stories of, what they went through
Mm.
as young people. I just think it's important to know where they've
Yeah.
come from, what life was like for them, and how that shaped who they were and where it got them to in life.
Because we don't sit around and tell those stories like they used to, way back when. Now it's sort of we're all so busy being entertained, as it were. And I've noticed a few people I know have got these little booklets that say, "Mum, tell me your story," or "Dad, tell me
Mm,
your story." Like, please write it down because we'd like to know. Like, I want to know more about your life. And I know for me now, it's really interesting to hear my mum talk about her history and her life.
mm. You know, those little books,
Mm.
I bought those books years and years and years ago, and Mum and Dad just would not find the time to fill them out.
Yeah.
So it's up to me to actually
You
ask
almost have
them
to
questions.
interview them now. Yeah, it's like you have to interview and record it to
That's
capture it.
exactly what I'm doing now.
Yeah.
Yeah. So my parents live in Victoria, and they were, while I was overseas last year, they were placed in an aged care home. And so I did struggle with that while I was away. And I felt like coming home I really needed to spend some time with them.
Mm.
Mum, I can't get too much out of because she's got dementia, but Dad, I can still get parts of his life that I wasn't really
Mm.
aware of, or that he just didn't share
Yeah.
it. And, you know, unless she's explicitly asking questions about different parts of his life, you wouldn't have a clue
Yes.
what his experiences were.
And the same could be said for us with our children,
True.
right? Like when we think about that, we go, well, actually, I don't share all of those stories with my children because
Mm,
they're at that stage where they're busy living their lives.
mm, that's
Mm.
true. Yeah.
So so tell me, you're now working in aged care and you're
Hmm.
loving it.
No, I
Te-
really am.
Tell me what that gives you now that I guess teaching can't give you anymore.
It's the personal connection.
Mhm.
I think the elderly can just give us so much. We're going to be there eventually. And I feel like they are underrated in our society,
Mhm. I agree.
and they've got so much to share with us.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, the people that I've spoken to so far, they've been a little bit hesitant to speak with me because they don't think I would be interested. But
Wow.
once they start talking, they share so much, and you can see them come to life. Like, wow,
Mhm.
yeah, this is bringing back these memories to me. And to me, that is so important that
Yes.
they feel valued. And just because their life is a little slower now, or they may feel like there's not really, you know, any importance in their lives right now, they still are such valuable people in our society.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So, what does a good life mean to you now?
Just to appreciate everything we
Mm.
have, you know, each day I wake up and I think, wow, what am I going to do today? On Mother's Day, for example, we never stop learning, do we? Or appreciating. I mean, one of the reasons I like to travel is because I love nature. I love exploring new environments. I love the idea of, you know, seeing something for the first time.
Yes.
I've always loved birds. Listening to birds is just so good for the soul.
Mm.
And my 26-year-old son has recently started bird watching, and people laugh at him because that's such a nerdy thing to do. But, you know, when he speaks about it, the people that speak to him about it are actually hooked as well.
Yeah.
So,
I know lots of people who are bird watchers, by the way. Like,
yeah,
it's amazing the joy and the presence that it brings to
it,
people.
it really is.
Mm.
So on Mother's Day, we went bird watching together. So
Oh,
we went down to Lake Weibo, and he actually has an app, so it's modern day bird watching, but it's
I have one too. I'm just
do
going to
you?
I
Well,
got it when I was in Canada because the birds were so different, and I wanted to know, well, what sound? What is that bird?
I've got one now too. So the day after Mother's Day, I went off for my little walk, and had the sounds on, and I was so excited. Like, it was like I was listening to birds for the first time. It's never too late to learn, is it?
No,
It's never too late to find new
never.
joys on, you know, how to get the most out of life.
Yeah,
Can be the
exactly.
simplest thing.
But it's also having that open spirit during midlife. Like, there's
Hmm,
people who want to just close down and go, oh, midlife. And there's other people who go, wow, there's still so much to learn and to experience in the world.
there is.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's your partnership with Dave
Mm,
it's kind of that perfect balance for you of being able to, come on, let's go and have some adventure.
yeah.
And you pulling him back and going, okay, let's have sensible adventure too. Like, there's times when we need to rein it in.
Yes. Yeah, I am
Yeah.
very lucky. We are very, very similar. We do enjoy the same things. We
Mm,
appreciate nature. We love exploring and just trying new things,
yeah. Yeah.
even though they're sometimes a little bit out of the comfort zone. And during it, I might be screaming or crying or whatever. But afterwards, I think, wow, I'm so glad I did that.
Yeah. This has been a fascinating, fascinating talk. I have really enjoyed just listening to this. I knew when I was watching your trip, it's like, I really want to talk to you when you get home. So I always finish these episodes with what I call the popcorn questions, small but big questions, and whatever
Yeah,
comes out, comes out. There's no right or wrong answers. So I'd like to just finish our episode with these. And
sure.
the first one is, what brings you most alive right now?
I love exploring new places.
Mhm.
I love,
Me too.
yeah, and just being around nature, being with my kids brings me
Yeah.
to life, absolutely, and
Yes.
especially because I don't see them very often. And just being with the people you want to be with.
Yes.
Don't
Yeah.
waste time on people that make you feel bad about yourself or,
Mhm.
hurtful. Life's
Yeah.
too short.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I agree. So
yeah.
what would your bravest self say to you about this chapter of your life?
Well, it doesn't matter if you fail. Just
Yeah.
continue to just try new things. Just do it.
I love that.
Yeah.
What's something small but powerful that helps you feel more like yourself?
Well, my latest thing is bird watching.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, I know, but
Love
small but powerful. I
it
agree.
is. It really is. Just going for a little, just going for a wander. We're so lucky in Noosa
Mm,
because we've got such beautiful,
yeah.
walking paths where I live.
And
It's
so
just,
many birds.
oh, so many birds.
Yeah. I
Just
heard the
listening.
kookaburras laughing in the background actually before, and I was like, oh, yeah, that's
Yeah,
Australia. That's like quintessential. I have
it
kookaburras that
is.
wake me up early every morning.
And we take it for granted.
Yes.
We came back from Europe and we thought, oh, listen to how loud those birds are.
Yeah.
It's just so special, you
Yes.
know. It's just nature calling you. It's just
Yeah.
so wonderful.
And the last question today, if you could gift every midlife woman one reminder, what is that?
That midlife, it's not the end of possibility.
Mm,
We are in charge of our own sort of destiny, really. You don't
yes.
have to say, "Oh, I can't do that," or I love the way that you are able to do that. Put it back to yourself and say, "Well, actually, maybe I can do that as well." You don't need permission to want more from your life.
Mm,
You don't have to transform everything overnight, but just be open to
mm,
exploring new things.
yeah.
And don't feel afraid. And if you fail, it doesn't matter.
Mm. Trish,
Yeah.
this has been a really powerful, powerful episode, and I can't wait to actually share it with people. For me, I think it's an extraordinary story and just a real pleasure to be able to sit with you and talk about all things in your life. So thank you.
Thank you so much, Margot.
Thanks for tuning in to Midlife Unfiltered. I hope today sparked something meaningful and reminded you of what's possible in this season of life. If this episode lifted you up, share it with someone who could use the reminder. Subscribing will make sure that you're notified when a new episode is released, and leaving a review on Apple Podcasts or Spotify also helps more people discover our little corner of midlife truth-telling. You can always reach out through Facebook, Instagram, or LinkedIn. I love hearing from women who are walking this path with me. Interested in working with me? You'll find everything you need at margaretcruise.com. And remember, midlife isn't an ending. It's your invitation to feel more alive than ever. See you next week. And now the legal stuff. The content in this podcast is provided for general information and inspiration only. It does not constitute medical, legal, or psychological advice, nor is it a substitute for independent professional care. Margaret Cruise is not a registered health professional. You are responsible for your own choices and outcomes and should always seek advice from an appropriately qualified professional.